Hey everybody, and welcome to the first episode of What We Just Remember, where we talk about things that we remembered back in the day, the good old days, around the 80s, 90s, and maybe even the early 2000s, where we're going to talk about things that we liked, disliked, games, video games, heck, traveling, just about anything that comes to mind for the time. It's a little bit more casual. We're not going to do such more of a book reporty thing that we've been doing in the past. You may hear some things going on in the background. You may not. It's a new thing that we're going to be trying out. And Dustin, what are we looking at today? What are we talking about?
Yeah, a little note on the things you might hear in the background. It's definitely not our underground sweatshop. It's just a few dogs wandering around, and they're part of the family. But today, we have a game that's near and dear to both of our hearts. It's a video game on PC back in, pretty much I wouldn't say the infancy of computer gaming, but maybe the adolescence. It was right before it hit its big stride. It was
kind of kicked off the genre.
Yeah, it kind of kicked off. Maybe even if it didn't kick off, it supercharged the genre. And this is the real-time strategy. And of course, we're talking about 1994's Command and Conquer.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Unit. Yes, sir.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
So, Command and Conquer.
Look at that. I'm already breaking our set.
Yeah. Command and Conquer is definitely for me, and I'm pretty sure for you, it's one of the core memories of my gaming history.
Oh, yeah. I burned up a lot of hours on that.
Oh, yeah. It's a real-time strategy game. So basically you're commanding a bunch of units, and it's like a war game. You go and you battle these other armies. And the story behind it was there was this terrorist organization called NOD, the Brotherhood of NOD, and then the UN-type faction was called GDI. And they were in battle over this new space-age material that fell from a meteor, and it was like a resource. It was called Tiberium.
Yep, Tiberium.
And it was these green crystals that were used for, I guess, power or just general
They
resources.
had a bunch of different minerals in them, supposedly. So,
Yeah.
they had gold and, precious metals in them, and they would harvest them and refine them down to get the precious metals out. And
That's right.
that's kind of where the whole want for it was. Come to find out, though, the Tiberium was actually toxic.
Yeah. And then that actually plays a big part of the story. But so you have these two factions. And the cool thing about this game is you could play an equally well-designed campaign for the good guys or the bad guys.
Yeah. It's kind of depending on what you were feeling that day.
And this comes fully with fully video rendered cutscenes to help you along with the story. The general thing is you just click a point on the map and that's your next mission. When you do that, it takes you to a cutscene, and depending on which side you are, it's telling their side of the story. And what's cool about this game is it doesn't have any weaknesses. The cutscenes they're always either funny, intense, or they're
graphic.
Graphic.
That
yeah.
one nod cutscene towards the end, yeah.
Yeah, they get the story going, and the gameplay is awesome. It's for its time, it was really groundbreaking.
Yeah, this was one of the first times that you had a lot of just point and click. It wasn't typing in key commands.
Yeah.
It wasn't having to do a lot of planning, or you used to do a lot of planning, but
Yeah.
you could literally just select what you wanted, right click on where to go, and you right clicked on an enemy and they would attack, and that was it.
They had a preset different versions of attacks, and there's a bunch of different units which we're going to get into. But you're the one who found this game, because I didn't have a PC at the time. You had just gotten one, and you had all these cool games, and I was begging. I was browbeating my parents every day, can we get one for Christmas? Can we get one for Christmas? And they're like, oh, I don't know.
It worked though, didn't it?
It did work.
Yeah.
But anyways, I would come over to your house on the weekend, we'd play games. But one day you came over and you had this. How did you find this game?
So I was going through the East Hills Mall in Bakersfield, California, and I can't remember if it was EB Games or if it was one of the local computer stores. But this was back in the day when they actually had boxes for computer games, and it wasn't downloads. And so they had this really cool graphics on there. And if I remember what drew up to it, inside the cover, when you opened it up, they had like this A10 doing a gun run or something like that. Something really cool, shoot, back in 94, we were how old?
So 13?
Yeah.
14?
So it had everything a 13-year-old could ever want.
Yeah.
And, the only thing that would be better on there would be maybe some boobies.
Yeah.
But other than that, it had every violent thing that you could ever want. And so we just decided, you know what? I begged my parents, cried, screamed, threw a fit, and they wound up buying it for me. And I remember taking it home and opening it up, and it was a CD game. It wasn't a floppy game.
Yeah.
So this was still back where the CDs were like double density or 4 times CD players. Maybe if you were lucky, you had a 6x speed, back in the day. And it was on a CD, and you actually had 2 CDs in it, one for Nod and one for GDI. And depending on who you were going to be playing as, you'd have to switch it in the game to, switch out your team, basically.
Yeah, and the cool thing about it, one of the best things was that you would never get this today. So back then the game was what, $45 first of all?
Probably somewhere around there.
Corey can go install the game with either disc. And to play it,
Loophole.
you could just have, like, if you want to play the GDI campaign, which is like the good guys, you would just need that disc. And so he could give me the Nod disc, and with that disc, I can play the Nod campaign, the full thing, and we could both play the multiplayer with it if we wanted to.
That's if your modem was up to it.
Yeah, and there was no, there was no
copyright,
no key password. This is being before the key codes.
Yeah, this was even back before EA found out how to do key codes and stuff like that in their stuff.
Yeah.
So, you could easily get 2 games for the price of 1 for your friend if you wanted to alternate the discs.
Yeah, had we planned it out better, we could have split the cost and we could have bought more games. But eventually the industry caught on and they started doing the pass key codes and stuff. But,
yeah.
So, yeah, you told me, so cut back to them. We're playing football on the flag football team for school. And I remember this is before you got Command and Conquer. You're like, hey, I got a computer. And in my mind, like, this is 92, 93, somewhere in there. And I was thinking, like, this really crappy, like, like just the DOS screen computers. I'm like, that's like kind of lame. You're like, no, like, you get to play cool games. And you had like Pacific Strike and I think maybe Doom or Wolfenstein or something.
Oh, I remember one of the first things I bought. It was actually the demo disc when they still had computer shows, kind of like they do with gun shows. I picked up a computer show demo CD that had like thousands of games, and it was kind of a crapshoot whether they'd work or not on your system. But, you would get like the demo of Doom, the demo of Hero Quest, the demo of, just a bunch of different games.
Yeah.
And heck, that kept me playing for almost a year and a half or so.
Oh, yeah. So long story short, I get over there and I get hooked on the computer. And then at some point, I don't remember when, but he's like, I got this new game. You're going to freaking love it. And he explained to me, he's like, yeah, you get to like be A-10s. You get to have tanks, grenaders, flamethrowers, like orbital ion cannons,
which was
scatter
still cool.
bombs, everything. So I'm like, that sounds good to me. Oh no, it wasn't even scatter bombs; it was nukes. I think.
Yeah, Nod had the nukes. GDI had the orbital ion cannon.
And they had ion cannon and the airstrikes.
Yep, and the airstrikes, depending.
So I get over there, and I had never played a game like this because I was always a console gamer before, obviously. So I never even knew what really a real-time strategy game was. So I get there and I'm watching him. He's like controlling all these units, like blowing shit up left and right, like. And then like when
this.
like when you kill guys, they go and like blood would spray out. The graphics were terrible, but at the time they were good to us.
Yeah, they were. I remember them being little block graphics and stuff. The remastered edition, which is out now, is way better resolution than whatever they could think of back then. So
yeah, needless to say, I was hooked right away, instantly, and. The game, like I was saying, the gameplay's so rich. Like it's so, there's a lot of strategy involved. Like, so each side has, first of all, that's the infantry units.
Yeah.
So for Nod, both sides had minigunners.
Yeah, which is your standard, machine gun infantry.
Yeah, and then both sides had engineers, which allowed you to take over build the opposing buildings. Like you would just straight steal it.
Yeah.
But they didn't have any weapons, so you'd have to like run them in, and you basically had to sneak them in.
I called them cannon fodder myself, but
pretty much, yeah, like distractions. And then Nod both sides had rocketers, because rocketers.
No, Nod had the rockets. GDI had the grenade guys. So they were a little different.
No. They both had rocketers, and Nod had flamethrowers, and GD had grenaders.
Was it that way?
I'm not 100% because I'm old as shit, but I think so. Because I think both sides needed an anti-tank, and that was the best. We could be wrong. We'll look it up, and
we'll look it up.
we're going to be putting some battles on.
There's going to be a
screen.
title above our head that says Corey or Dustin was right.
Yeah.
So
But either way, so those were the basic units, and then each side had a commando.
yeah, I got a present for you.
This commando
I heard
was
that many a times.
basically every action movie hero from the 80s and 90s.
Oh yeah, smoked a cigar if I remember right. If you let him stand there long enough.
Yeah, he would smoke a cigar, and he had a
Silenced pistol or rifle or something.
So he one-shot any infantry unit.
Yeah, wasn't worth a crap against the vehicle.
Vehicles, but what else could he do?
He had a
one-shot
C4
buildings.
charge. Yeah,
So if you had him selected, you could highlight him, and you could highlight a building, and if he made it there, he'd run in there, it'd blow up, and you could one-shot their most important buildings, like their construction yard, which allows you to build new buildings.
yeah. I remember the very first mission you get him on. You're tasked with blowing up a bunch of SAM sites.
Yeah.
And you had to go around. What always pissed me off was that every time you blew up a SAM site, you lost a building and you'd get like a little infantry guy or a technician. Well, the refresh rate on it wasn't high enough where the commando would destroy the building and shoot the guy that was coming out. So the rifleman would always get like one or two shots off.
Hot shots, yeah.
And, slowly after 2 or 3 buildings being destroyed, if you didn't get a heal for your commando, he'd be dead just because he blew up a building.
Yeah, and the thing was, it was like RNG. So sometimes you blow up a building,
Got a present for you.
Unit lost.
and because if you got unlucky 2 times in a row, your guy's dead. He
Yeah.
one-shots everybody, but has a cooldown on his attack.
Yeah, it was definitely something cool to be able to do that, especially if you got like them in a line and they were just like walking straight towards him.
Oh, yeah.
because he had a hell of a range too compared to the actual gunners.
But that's the mission. I think that's when I showed the game to my cousin Blake. That's the first mission he saw, so he kind of thought the whole game was about like, no, you get to control the entire army.
Yeah,
But yeah, that mission was cool. And the missions themselves, they start off as easy as can be. The first one, you just have to, for the good guys, you have to just establish a beachhead and take out the enemy forces in the area, and there's like not that many. But the difficulty ramps up and ramps up and ramps up. And what's cool about it is every time you go to a new mission, it brings up a theater, a combat theater.
yeah, that
And
combat map.
Mission 7, you could choose 2 different mission 7s.
Yeah, it did have some replayability.
And you would learn real quick which one was the hard one, which was the good one.
Yeah, real quick, because you do a save just before you beat the other one, and then you go, okay, I'm not doing that one on the left. I'm doing the one on the right.
Yeah. And so you kind of had to cheese it because the gaming world wasn't as refined as it is now. Like they kind of have everything down. So it was a little rough, but for the time it was like groundbreaking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember the progression plan. You would get slowly each mission. You'd get extra guys. You'd get extra vehicles.
Yeah.
But some of the main points was like, okay, cool. You've got the Orca, which is the flying unit in the game for GDI, which was like this vertical takeoff and landing missile carrying deal. It was crap against infantry unless you got like 12 of them, then you can just bum rush it.
Yeah.
But it would do pretty good against vehicles on a one-on-one basis because there wasn't very too many things that in the game for the opposite side, except for maybe the rocket guy and something else wouldn't be able to touch them because at that time the machine gunners couldn't shoot air targets.
Yeah.
They were ground only.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
then-
So you were almost invincible depending on what you were attacking at this point. Our harvesters were game on at that point because they had no defense.
the harvesters are just a thing, these big like dump truck things. They would go gather the Tiberium, which was your money, which is the more money you have, the more units you can buy, the bigger army you can have. So that was a strategy. If you're playing multiplayer, you would take out the other person's harvesters.
Yeah.
Or even the computer. But if you attack the computer's harvester, they send every unit and they're going to come fuck you up.
Yeah, that was one way to piss off the computer. Definitely, is if you actually just, even just a machine gunner walked too close to it.
Yeah.
If they took damage, it was game on, and then they just started to turtle bum rush you.
Yeah, it could be like your harvester's out collecting and they come and kill your harvester. Out of the blown up harvester spawns a little technician guy. They have little handguns that do no
crap.
damage. But he'll start opening fire on the harvester, and then that just triggers all attack. And
Yeah, pretty much the opposite the team hears the doom music and just comes hauling ass and just
they're coming for
they're looking for
vengeance.
blood. Yeah,
The funny thing is the nature of the game, these missions, like the only way to really do it is you start off slow, and there's a built-in timer to when they're going to start attacking you. So that gives you a grace period.
they cheat.
They cheat. They build stuff way faster than you can. So, but they do
Double.
have their base established. So you're trying to establish your base and establish your defensive. So if one of your units accidentally fights their harvester, you're just dead. You got to start the mission over.
Pretty much, yeah.
So there's a little wonky gameplay, but it was great. GDI had more conventional tanks.
Yeah,
They had the medium tank, which is like your
Abrams.
and they had like the Jeeps.
They had the
and
Hummers. Yeah.
They had the Hummers. They had the rocket trucks later on, way late in the game.
Oh yeah, the MLRSs, which is the multi-missile carriers.
And then they had the granddaddy of them all, the ground units.
Oh
Why don't you tell
yeah.
them about them?
Oh yeah, the Mammoth tank. This thing was a double-barreled. Now, mind you, every unit in the game only had one type of gun. If you were a tank, you only had the cannon. If you were a Humvee, you only had a machine gun. If you were the missile launcher, you only had the missiles that would shoot. The Mammoth tank was the only dual-weapon unit in the game, and it had a set of missiles and it had a set of dual cannons on it, so it would fire 2 cannon rounds every time it would fire. And there was actually a little bit of a trick to it. If you were trying to fire at infantry, you would force fire, because that would fire the missiles faster than the cannon would, because they would try to use the cannon before it would do anything else. But you could force fire and try to use the missiles, because the missiles were more effective than the cannon rounds.
Yeah. They were better at killing the infantry.
Of course, running them over was always a thing to do, because you could hear the squish sound. Yeah.
We'll get to that next. But do you remember the other power of the Mammoth tank?
It would self-heal halfway, wouldn't it?
If you were under half health, it would heal up to full. So as long as you didn't, heal up to half.
Yeah.
So as long as it didn't get killed, if you survived the battle, you just pull it out and it would self-repair.
Yeah. That saved my ass many a times.
Oh yeah, it was a strategy. Like you would just, as long as you didn't kill it, it was going to come back for more. It was
Oh
powerful.
yeah. You could park it in a choke point, in a bottleneck somewhere between some mountains and some hills or something, where you knew they were going to be coming, and just park it there. And it was basically a mobile command base with 2 guns and 2 missile launchers, and it was hard to beat unless they completely stormed you.
Yeah, like if you left it by itself, they had a few vehicles and some 5 or 6. They would take it down, but you would have like support for it.
Oh yeah.
But it could solo 2 or 3 units at once and some infantry.
Oh yeah. If you had the position where you could get like 2 or 3 of them,
Yeah.
it was like God mode. You can just run anywhere on the map you wanted to.
And this was kind of like one of the genius things about this game was it was kind of parallel to real life, where like the good guys, like the UN type side, they had just a straightforward, we're going to run it down your throat and crush you.
Mm-hmm.
Not on the other hand,
They were sneaky.
they were sneaky bastards.
They had the stealth tank.
They had the stealth tank. It was like exactly what it sounds like. It was
Yep.
like Predator stealth on a tank.
Yep.
And it had rockets.
Yeah.
There's different rockets in the game. So these rockets weren't the rockets that were good against infantry, just buildings and tanks.
Yeah.
So you can theoretically sneak these in their base and blow up their important buildings.
Oh yeah. There was nothing like being, playing and you think you're doing great, and all of a sudden you'd hear I don't know, what kind of sound was it?
It was like the closing sound was like,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden one of your buildings just gets like 3 shot.
Right. So they also had the flame tank too.
The flame tank was probably the best overall unit in the game.
Oh yeah, because it could do damage to tanks, buildings, and if you got a cluster of infantry, it was gone.
Oh yeah, like especially because the grenaders for GDI, if you hit one, they would explode.
Yeah, they had an area effect when of their death animation, and it would actually do damage to other infantry.
So the next thing really that was awesome about this game was the sound design.
Oh yeah, they had a great band that came in and done the sound for it. Whoever done the mixing for the MIDs and the music was awesome.
Yeah, the grenades. We talked about how they would chain react off of the flame tanks. like the sound was awesome. It was like they did a good job of like capturing that what
Yeah.
that might sound like.
Even if it was a little 8-bit, digital synthesizer, they still done a good job with it.
Yeah, and the voiceovers were cool. Like we were talking about the Commando, he would shoot a guy and he's like, "That was left-handed."
Yeah,
he's
I got a
like,
present for you when you
got a-
click on the CF4.
Yeah, I got a present for you. And then sometimes he would just shoot a guy and like splatter him. He's like,
Yeah, and just laugh about it. Did not have a Commando?
yeah, they had the same exact Commando.
Was it the same one? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were.
And then so like the next thing really was like the just like the other sound effects of the tanks and stuff. It wasn't like groundbreaking, but it was good. But like you were saying, the music was awesome.
The music was great. I mean, to this date, you can still buy the Command & Conquer original soundtrack and just have it on CD or have it digitized.
Yeah,
There's still some bangers on there.
Oh yeah, you can even find the songs on YouTube. And what was cool about it, it had a built-in like you could build your own playlist.
Yeah,
So if you don't want to hear all, because some of the songs weren't great, but like there was 4 or 5 like straight bangers.
oh yeah.
And I always had those ones on repeat. And like, I think it was like Act on Instinct was like the main one that would always play right at the beginning.
Yeah, and then there was Give It Up.
Just Do It.
Just Do It, that's what it was.
And then Warfare was the hard rockin' tune, the instrumental. So yeah, when the music would shift, and sometimes it would align perfectly when you have like, you finally defended your base successfully, you crippled the enemy, and now it's time to roll in there and freaking crush them.
Yeah.
So the music would shift as your like massive army of like tanks and planes were flying in, and you're using your special weapons, and like you're just blowing shit up, and the music goes perfectly with it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Now, mind you, too, we're also, 5th, 6th grade at this point?
Yeah, like
So this was complete and utter just, yeah, type thing.
I'm pretty sure it still holds up, but
yeah.
we'll let it speak for itself when we show some clips.
Well, it does, because look how many people bought the remastered edition recently a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing sold millions of copies when they remastered it and sent it out.
Because they had like all the Command & Conquer games.
Oh, yeah.
They made several sequels, which we may do episodes of them later, but for the super weapons, what did GDI have?
So GDI had the ion cannon, which would one-shot any unit and would take out it would probably destroy a power plant in one shot, the Nod barracks in one shot, and a few other things in one shot. Other things, the larger things like the construction yard and I think the war factory or the airfield.
You had to do some damage.
You had to do some damage to it, but it was a good finishing move for a lot of it.
You can just like burst it down.
Yeah.
You want to know a cool fun fact? It doesn't always one-shot the power plants. If you shoot it on, because it's like a little smokestack, you have to place it on the smokestack. If you place it on the side of the building, it'll take it down to like 10% health. Maybe I'll try to put that up here.
Yeah.
The difference in the two. But yeah, it's cool. Like,
but you can shoot it anywhere, even in the fog of war.
yeah, and it charged up. The cooldown was a lot shorter than the Nod one,
Yeah, which was their nuke missile,
the nuke missile.
which you didn't even really see that one until the last 2 missions or something like that.
Yeah, all of a sudden you be playing and you hear the announcer go, "Nuclear launch detected."
Detected.
And you're like, "Oh, what the hell
Shit.
is this?"
Yeah, where the hell did that come from?
And that wouldn't necessarily one-shot every building, but it would one-shot things that, like weaker buildings that were damaged, and it would fuck everything up. So if you,
it had a bigger area effect.
way bigger.
If you were looking at cells, it was probably like a 7x7 cell,
Oh, probably, yeah.
and I
at
think
least.
the ion cannon was more condensed, but it was only like maybe a 3x cell.
Something, yeah.
It was pretty small.
So if you're playing multiplayer with conjunction with any sort of like attack on your base, you're done.
Yeah,
If the computer just launches it as soon as it's ready, but if they catch you at a bad time, you're done.
yeah. They didn't have too much strategy. It was just like on the algorithm. Okay, it's ready to go. Launch it.
Yeah, just fire. And
Because
forget.
if it actually did have some smarts and go, okay, let's get some people in close by, and let's launch it, and then bum rush the base after it's been nuked, probably would have been a lot of pissed off people.
Oh yeah, it would have been miserable. The GDI had another kind of semi super weapon, the airstrike.
Oh yeah, that's where they actually had the A-10s. That's what made me mad the most.
Yeah,
I seen the A-10 on the box art, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. But they didn't have the gun. They did not have that Gatling gun in there. No Burt. So what they did was they would have 3 A-10s come in, and they would drop like napalm on things, which was hell on infantry, but it didn't do a damn thing for tanks.
some of the lighter like armored buildings, it would mess them up pretty bad. But yeah, tanks didn't do hardly anything.
Yeah.
Now, what about the cutscenes?
The cutscene were, like you said earlier, they were fully rendered cutscenes. They weren't full motion digital video because they didn't have that for many years.
Yeah.
But they were digitally rendered animations that was done really well. I mean, of course, if you look at them now, they're going to be really dated. But you got to remember, we're running on a 640 by 480 screen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there wasn't anything. Nobody even thought of 4K at this point.
Oh yeah, it was anybody's wet dream.
Oh yeah. And I think at the time I only had like a 16-inch monitor, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I was lucky to have maybe a 24-bit color scheme.
Probably.
Maybe even 16.
I couldn't even tell you. I don't even remember at all.
Yeah, but for the day, they were pretty cool. And then it would play something when you started, and they would play something at the end. Whether you won or lost, you got a cutscene.
Yeah.
And sometimes those losing cutscenes were brutal.
Yeah. Like if you were playing as Nod and they beat you, you see a little, because their symbol was a scorpion tail.
Yep.
If you see a scorpion walking in an eagle, which was a GDI one, would come by, swoop it up, and eat it.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Or sometimes it would just be like, like your base getting like fucked up. Like
Yeah, I remember the one where the Nod, no, it was the GDI APC came in and just ran over the flagpole of the Nod base, and then you see like soldiers come in and just like start hoisting up the GDI flag, which is basically like a fuck you to the Nod base that they just conquered.
And then they had those, and then they had the story cutscenes.
Yeah, where they actually played
Like actual video.
Yeah.
And what's cool about that is like they were distinct from the two sides. So the GDI you're talking to I think it was Commander Shepard actually.
Yeah, Commander Shepard was the first one.
It's a straight laces commander. On the GDI side, the story was told through Commander Shepard or General Shepard. And he was like the straight laced guy, and at first he's just like, these are the facts. This is the mission. We need you to do this, this, and this. And you could tell, like as the war's going on, like he was getting more and more pissed off.
Yeah, more frazzled, more pissed off. and finally, at one point, he just goes, "Here's some units. Go kill them all." And they're like, "Yeah."
Yeah, the final mission, like his tie's off, his shirt's unbuttoned. He's like, "We got that rat corner to go." Basically, he didn't say. He's like, "Basically, go fuck him up." Like,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Oh, and by the way, here's the codes for the nuclear or for the ion cannon. Go use that.
Yeah, he's like, "You're fully unlocked. Go fuck shit up."
Yeah. And then Nod was kind of the same way. Nod has got some twists in it, though.
Yeah.
Nod, so at first you're dealing with this guy,
Seth, I think.
Seth, and so he's kind of giving you your orders, but the orders are supposed to be coming from Kane, which is like their prophet.
Yeah.
And so, Nod being the bad guys, you get a little bit of a double cross there about halfway through the Nod campaign.
Yeah.
You find out Seth's been fucking them. Mm-hmm. And next thing, so like the war isn't going good or something, and like Seth tells you, hey, you need to go do this, this, and this. And the next thing you know, all you see is a pistol come out of the side of the screen and go
boom
and dome him. And he just kind of like falls and slumps over. And then you see Kane set down, and he gives a little bit of a monologue. You're like, you'll be taking orders directly from me now.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to be doing this. And then he gives you your new mission.
And he's like the stereotypical like 90s badass with a shaved head and the goatee. And he's like really charismatic, and he's like really into because like a cult.
Oh, yeah, he was the cult leader. He was their prophet. But the funny thing was, he was actually the director. Or what was it? He was...
that I don't remember, but...
if I remember right, we'll put it up here, but the guy who played... shoot, I forgot his name. Kane, thank you. Was actually like the lead director of photography or something like that from the actual show or from the game.
Yeah, back then they didn't have these $70 million budgets, so they kind of people had to do, multiple roles. So.
Yeah, it's what a lot of the characters were in the game.
Yeah.
The guy that you kind of first get your orders from for the GDI. Mm-hmm. Remember that guy that was on the beachhead, and you kind of get that little bit of a video.
Oh yeah.
He was actually a worker at Westwood as well.
It makes sense. Like they had to pay the bills and get it out. And And so the Nod campaign basically at the end he's like, we're on the verge of victory, brother, or something like almost like Hulk Hogan-esque, like he's like really into it. And it's actually not a bad job of acting. It's like acting for a video game in the 90s, so it's a little cheesy, obviously, but the guy who plays Kane is so sincere.
Oh yeah.
And
he's played Kane for how many years?
Multiple times.
I mean, every one of the video games, he's always came back as Kane, and they put out 4 of them.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that last one, though. It wasn't too good.
Well, we might get to it.
Yeah.
And then, so we kind of skipped over it, but each side had base defense units.
Yep.
So, well, they had different structures. Let's talk about all the structures. So each side had a barracks is where you would build your infantry from.
Yep. There was a barracks, and then Nod had what they called the Hand of Nod, which was a little different. Had a hand coming out holding the world, and the infantry would come out of the door.
Not ominous at all.
No.
Both sides to power the base had power plants and advanced power plants.
Yep, and those were both the same.
The advanced power plants cost more, but they produce more mana and they save space.
Yep.
It was cheaper to buy 2 power plants, but they took up more space, and space was also a resource.
That was the weird thing about it, too, is that you had to build with your buildings touching each other. You could not build away from them.
Yeah, they had to be like maybe 1 unit space only sometimes. And there was a way, well, I'm going to talk about...
Sandbags.
Yeah, the sandbags. And then so each side had a war factor. This is where you build your vehicles. Each side had a construction yard, which...
Yeah, the main thing in your base.
The main thing in your base. Each side had a radar and advanced...
Yeah.
Was it radar? It's called something different.
So the radar, there was a comm station. Communication center, yeah. And that would give you your map because you didn't have a map until you got the communication station up and running. And that was usually allowed you to get more advanced units in the war factory. And then GDI had the advanced communication center,
which allowed you to sell your old one, and it would do that. It would do that old ability of the old one, and it would give you
the ion cannon.
The ion cannon.
Yep.
And then Nod had the Temple of Nod, which took a shitload of power, and it launched a nuke later on in the missions.
Yep.
And it allowed you to unlock the higher end technologies.
Yeah. So that's when you would get your stealth tanks. The flame tanks came when you got the communication center, if I remember right.
Yeah, I forget the tech tree. But GDI, I can't remember if they both had it, but GDI had a repair bay.
Yeah, they both did.
They both did, okay.
Yeah, but you got the one for Nod way later than GDI did.
This is all standard stuff for RTSs. Where it gets interesting is like I was alluding to earlier, was the base defense.
Yeah, they had different ones. They had different concepts. So GDI carried light defenses, except when you got the advanced guard towers, because they gave you a guard tower where they had like an M60 machine gun in the guard tower, and it could mow down infantry.
And even light armored vehicles.
Yeah, light armored vehicles. So GDI had the Humvee, and Nod had a buggy, which was really light armored. And they didn't take too well to, heavy bullets. Where Nod, on the other hand, their defensive structures, they were doing like this gun turret looking thing, which looks like it had a tank turret on a square box, right? Yeah. Yep. And then they had the big mama of the Nod side. This is one of the reasons why I love playing the Nod side. If you had the power to run it, what'd they have?
They had the obelisk. It was a scorpion tail that would shoot like a laser beam, and it would one-shot any infantry, no problem. And it would 2-shot like heavy tanks and like 4-shot mammoth tanks, probably.
Yeah. I remember every time that they would get shot, the infantry with the laser, they would actually like jump up in the air and they'd do like this electrocution thing where they'd shake and then they'd just fall down to the ground and then they'd disappear.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And it was such a powerful weapon. And Nod had SAM sites.
That's right, to defend against the orcas.
And there were some units that were only available in multiplayer and some that were in the campaign. Yeah. So what was cool about it was each side's defensives were designed to defeat the other, whereas Nod is like sneaky and a lot of light armor, fast moving stuff. So they had, we forgot GDI's higher.
The advanced guard tower, which had missiles.
Which would shoot missiles and would shred light armored vehicles and it horribly shred infantry. So like I was saying, they were each set up to beat the other side. GDI had a bunch of heavy armored units, so all their stuff was like good against armor. And Nod had a bunch of light armor guys, and they would use like sneaky tactics, so they had like light armor stuff that was shot faster kind of thing.
Yeah, I can't tell me how many times I cursed a mission for Nod because most of the time GDI would give you a base. Okay, here, build your base, do this, and let's go raid this place. A lot of times you'd go to a Nod mission, and the Nod mission would be like, okay, let's infiltrate this. And they'd give you like 3 tanks, a buggy, a rocket bike, and like a couple deals of infantry. And they're like, go finish the mission with this stuff. And you're like, shit.
You have to scrape by, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many times I beat a mission with like maybe a buggy and an infantry guy.
Yeah, it gets down, like some of the missions are pretty unforgiving.
Yeah.
Those are just the general units and stuff and the gameplay. Let's talk about some shenanigans. So before we get to multiplayer, what sucks about this game is they didn't have a skirmish mode where you can just play against a computer with the full technology. You had to play on the maps. There was a way around this, which we'll talk about later. But if you had control of the map and you can do whatever you wanted and you could decimate them. What were some of your favorite things to do?
So I think this was everybody's favorite. If you built enough advanced power plants, you could get a huge amount of obelisks.
Yes.
And there's nothing like hearing like 7 or 8 of these obelisks charge up and then just be unleashed onto a single machine gunner that just exited the barracks. Because you're like, oh, I'm a new guy. I'm going to go out and do things. And just get shredded immediately coming
Instantly.
out. Yeah.
And, like Corey was saying earlier, like you have to build next to buildings. So one way to cheese it, you can build the cheapest building, which was considered, it was a sandbag, but it was considered a building, and it would allow you to build buildings.
Yeah.
So you'd be
one square at a time, all the way up.
You could build it all the way to their base. And the funny thing about the AI, if you're playing on a really hard mission and you want to cheese them out, if you blocked their exit for their base, they didn't know how to shoot walls.
The AI was, they had a list of which ways to go, and if you found out which way they were going and blocked it or guarded it or something, you were safe for the rest of the map.
So that was a way to cheese like hard missions, but and you could do it in PvP too, where you could build walls out to the Tiberium field and build a bunch of advanced guard towers, and it would just like shred their
to guard the field. Yeah,
and then so they would send their army out, and then it would just shred their army because these guard towers were brutal.
Oh yeah, depending on where you placed them, and they didn't take much power up either. Well, at least the original guard towers don't.
Yeah,
the advanced ones take a little bit more. Nothing like an obelisk, but there's nothing like your harvester going into a Tiberium field and you hear.
Yeah.
You start right clicking really quick to call it back or move it back. You know damn well that thing doesn't turn around fast enough, and you will get at least shot a couple times.
That was my favorite shenanigans thing to do, is just build guard towers out in the Tiberium field and just shred they can't make any money, so they can't build anything.
Yeah.
Now, like as far as like the multiplayer, you had some sad stuff to report, don't you?
Yeah, I always got my ass whooped in multiplayer.
Well, the first thing is your modem wasn't really wanting to let you play until you figured it out.
Well, the problem was I lived out in the sticks, and even when I had a 56K modem, which was the fastest modem that they ever did produce, because my phone line connection was so crap because I was out in the middle of nowhere, I think the best I ever got was 33.6 or something like that on a dial-up connection with Prodigy. Who remembers Prodigy? Yeah. And so very rarely did I ever have the bandwidth in order to, play multiplayer out there. I think the only time we really did play multiplayer was maybe in high school when I finally got maybe a DSL connection or a dedicated phone line or something like that.
Probably. And I think you eventually did get it figured out, but by that time, me and some other guys had been playing multiplayer a lot, so we figured out all the strategies, so you were left behind.
Oh, yeah. I was behind the curve for sure. These guys kicked the shit out of me every single time, except for one. I got one good story.
Yeah. But my favorite thing is the first time I played, I kind of lost against these other guys, but then I kind of figured out, I saw how they were playing, and I saw how the multiplayer game worked. You had to play a little differently. And so I went on this winning streak where I don't think I lost another match to these guys ever. And they got tired of playing me. But I would get them to where I'd set them up, and my big thing, I thought it was so cool, and I was like 13, 14, is right before I would send my multi-wave attack of the orcas and the ground crew to take out their construction yard, so it would basically put them out of the game, and use the ion cannon to finish it off. I would type in do you believe in God? And I'd hit it, and then like I would just wreck their shit. And I thought it was so cool, and I could just know for a fact they were raging.
Yeah, no, my only one good victory that I still laugh about today is when me and him were playing. Actually, you know what? No, that wasn't even on Command and Conquer.
That was the sequel.
That was the sequel of Tiberian Sun.
Tell them anyways, because it goes along.
So Tiberian Sun was out, what, how many years later? Like I said, this was probably in high school when I finally got my DSL connection and set up.
5 years later.
Yeah, so there had been a couple sequels already. We're talking a couple expansions. We're talking Red Alert from made by Westwood as well, which was like a totally separate story.
Yeah.
And then also Tiberian Sun, which was a sequel to Command and Conquer, set in the future of that universe. So the Mammoth Tank Mark II, which was in Tiberian Sun, was actually a giant four-legged walker.
Yeah.
And it had rail guns and missiles and all this other cool stuff. And this guy over here was just whooping the hell out of me. And I believe he actually was concentrated on my base because my base was just getting wrecked. And I happened to get a drop
ship that could
pick up the mammoth. And I picked up the drop ship and I happened to sneak it by his entire base defenses and drop it in a corner. And I walked it the rest of the way of his base. Now, I can't remember if you did the whole "do you believe in God"
I probably
thing.
did, I'm sure.
I think you probably did. But I had a little of my own, and I just typed in, "I was walking through the park one day," as this thing is walking through his base, just railgunning anything and everything in its way. He wound up destroying it, but we still laughed about that. To this day, when we were setting up for this podcast, talking about it, just kind of laughing about it. And, that was my one it wasn't even a victory. It was just like one kind of funny thing I did.
Yeah, but you we were, for the second one, me and Blake, I'm not joking. We would get home from school at 3 or 4. I'd go over his house and we would play from like 3. We'd take turns. We'd play till like 2 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
My grades went.
I was going to say, yeah.
And so we had tons of, we were ranked really high. I think in the world, there was 50,000 players that were playing. We were under 1,000. We were really good. So you just didn't have a chance because we had way.
Oh, thanks.
Well, not like you weren't good, but you didn't have we had.
No, I wasn't good. I'll admit right now, I wasn't good.
We had 400 or 500 games under our belts.
But as far as multiplayer goes, I may have had 10 or 15 to tell you the truth.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't do multiplayer, and I still don't to this day do multiplayer too much.
The funny thing, though, about the Mammoth Tank is the railguns would shoot through anything. So you would want to target the object further behind, and you would line it up to where it would shoot, even buildings. So, and the Mammoth Tank would 2 to 3 shot buildings in the sequel.
Yeah.
So if you line it up right, you can go shoot, and then you'd kill 4 buildings, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the game's awesome. For about 4 or 5 years ago, they had one of the anniversary packs. You can find it on Steam. It has almost all the games.
Yeah, I remember they did that before they did the remake.
Yeah, and then they did the remasters. So you can find these games, and if you like real-time strategies, I highly suggest it.
Oh yeah,
I was playing. The problem is the AI is not great, so it's either kind of feast and famine. They added the skirmish finally, but they're not really a challenge, or they're too hard if you put them too high. So it's kind of annoying, but it's worth the play.
Now I know you know about this probably now with the remastered edition because they made it really easy to get a hold of.
Yeah.
But do you remember the secret level back in the day?
No, I don't.
The ant level?
I remember. I don't. That was in Red Alert, though, right?
No. The Red Alert was a different one.
Oh, really?
No, there was an ant level in Command and Conquer. You can get to it real easy in the remastered because they almost tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
But in the original game, you had to jump through some hoops to get to it. But there was a secret ant level where you had a bunch of ants that were basically attacking your base, and you had to go and destroy the ants.
Oh, I remember the ants, but for some reason I'm associating with one of the sequels, but.
Yeah, you're thinking Red Alert with something else.
This reminds me. You know what's... We should have talked about in the shenanigans we can still talk about. You found an editor.
Oh,
where you can
God.
edit the values of all the units.
That's right, and you could make your own units. Yeah, I remember changing it up to making the minigunners shoot the Gatling lasers or something like that from the obelisk, which the only problem was the computer wrecked me because if it wasn't a unit that was shared between the two, like the minigunners were,
They would build them too.
they would do the same thing.
Yeah.
So you had to make sure you were editing something that was only on GDI or only on Nod.
Yeah.
So I remember a couple times where I made an Orca that would just wreck a base.
And like, the game wouldn't be quite as fun, but it was fun to mess around with.
Oh yeah, it was fun to play with, see what worked, what didn't work. You know, you take your commando and you turn him into Chuck Norris, where he just kicks the crap out of everything.
Yeah, there's a bunch of health, a bunch of armor.
Yeah,
and you already killed everything fast. Like, yeah, dude, the game's so sweet. Like, it's fun, and there's something else about it that was like, we talk about the music, talk about the missions, cutscenes. It kind of had it all.
yeah. For back in the day, I mean, remember this is '94 after all. There hadn't been too many of RTS games out there. Like we talked about a little bit about Dune, but that was kind of a clunky first try. There was some other ones out there that were more of a
Like Warcraft.
Well, Warcraft was also made by Westwood, if I remember right.
No, it's Blizzard.
That's right, Blizzard. You're right. That's right. Blizzard and Westwood was kind of in competition there for a while. But even then,
It was all medieval stuff.
it was medieval, but they also came out around the same time. I don't remember which one was first, but if I remember right, both of them around the same year came out.
I think Warcraft was first, but the Warcraft didn't get really big till Warcraft 2.
Yeah.
So it was like Dune, Dune, Warcraft, and Warcraft was received well, but Command and Conquer came and blew everybody's fucking doors off.
Yeah.
And then Warcraft 2 came in and blew everybody's doors off. And then it was an arms race between Red Alert, Command and Conquer, Blizzard games, StarCraft, Warcraft, all this stuff.
Because that's when StarCraft started coming in and got big too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, Westwood and Command and Conquer wasn't the first, but they're the one that kind of, I'm not going to say revolutionized, but got everything really.
They took it to the next level.
Yeah, they took it to the next level and got everybody on the right path and direction to go.
Yeah, for sure. So I would recommend it if you got a few extra bucks and you want to check out a cool old RTS, Command & Conquer. You can find it on Steam. I forget what it's called. Just Google it. It'll pop up.
Oh, yeah, Command & Conquer Remastered. The nice thing about the Remastered is we only talked about Command & Conquer. There's at least two other expansions, Covert Ops and I think another one. And then you've got multiple other Red Alert 2, Red Alert 3, Command & Conquer 1, Command & Conquer Tiberian Sun. What's the other one?
There's Generals, Command & Conquer Generals.
Oh, that makes my stomach churn.
That one had its issues. And then there's Command & Conquer 4,
which was another one that was like...
They introduced
it was
third
pretty
faction.
and polished, but the gameplay was terrible in my opinion.
It wasn't fun. It was the game. What Command & Conquer excelled at being simple and fast paced. It was frantic compared to all these other RTSs, which were kind of clunky and tedious.
Yeah.
This one, it's like you had power and you had money and you had technology.
Yeah.
So those were your three things you had to balance. But it was mainly just the money and power. If you built your base up right.
Because I remember there was Civilizations, the Sid Meier's Civilizations, but that was a way more in detailed civilization builder, monitoring politics and other crap. And it's like, I just wanted to blow stuff up.
Yeah. I don't know. The game's sweet. I highly recommend it. And you do too, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I recommend it. I mean, it's definitely brings back nostalgia, especially when they had the remastered edition came out. I waited till it was on sale, but I did pick it up.
Yeah. It's fun. Like I just cannot possibly recommend it more. So, yeah, this is one of our more fonder memories.
Oh yeah, we'll get into trauma, and I'll probably be crying in later episodes when we talk about other stuff. But this is one of my fond memories.
Yeah. So like I said, check it out, and thanks for watching.
See you in the next one.